How does an apex predator, 9 meters long and weighing over 2 tons, dominate a world of giants with a bite, force weaker than a modern lion? This is the central paradox of Allosaurus fragilis, the different lizard, a creature whose name belies its status as the most formidable carnivore of the late Jurassic. It was a killer that shouldn't have been, a hunter whose success seems to defy the simple logic of raw power. What was its secret? How did this theropod become the undisputed sovereign of its domain, capable of tackling prey many times its own size? Now, let's open the fossil record and resurrect the story of this Jurassic titan. Our journey takes us back 150 million years to the Morrison Formation of North America. This was a world of epic proportions. A vast, semi-arid floodplain seasonally inundated with water, supporting a dynasty of colossal sauropods and armored ornithischians. And stalking this world of giants was Allosaurus. Its fossils are the most common of any large theropod found in this immense rock layer, telling us that this was not a rare monster, but a keystone species, an animal fundamental to the structure of its entire ecosystem. Our scientific portrait of Allosaurus has been built over more than a century of discovery, from the fragmented bones unearthed during the frantic bone wars of the late 19th century to astonishingly complete specimens like Big Al 2, which provides a near-perfect blueprint of its skeleton. When we analyze this skeleton, the paradox of its power comes into sharp focus. The skull is a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering, large yet deceptively light, filled with large openings called fenestrae that reduced its weight without sacrificing structural integrity. Biomechanical models based on this skull reveal a surprisingly modest bite force, far below that of later giants like Tyrannosaurus rex. Its teeth, while sharp, serrated, and recurved, were not the thick, bone-shattering spikes of its Cretaceous successor. They were slicing implements, designed to shear through flesh like blades. This anatomical evidence points away from a simple bite-and-crush strategy. The true weapon was not just the jaw, but the entire skull, powered by an immensely strong neck. We believe Allosaurus employed a hunting technique best described as a hatchet-bite. It would open its jaws to an astonishingly wide gape, perhaps as much as 80 degrees, and then drive its upper jaw downwards with the full force of its neck muscles. The impact would inflict a catastrophic wound, the rows of blade-like teeth carving a deep channel through hide and muscle. This was a strategy of shock and exsanguination. The goal wasn't to hold on, but to wound grievously and wait for the target to bleed out and weaken. The rest of its body was a perfectly integrated killing machine built to support this attack. Powerful hind limbs provided the locomotive force for pursuit, while a long, muscular tail acted as a precise counterbalance, allowing for agility and high-speed maneuvers. Its forelimbs, often underestimated, were far from vestigial. Each arm was short but powerfully built, ending in 3 wickedly sharp, recurved claws. These were not weapons for delivering a killing blow, but essential tools for grappling, holding on to struggling prey just long enough for the head and neck to deliver their devastating, hatchet-like strike. Allosaurus wasn't simply a brute. It was a highly specialized, dynamic predator whose entire anatomy points to a life of high-risk, high-reward confrontations. This specialized anatomy was not an evolutionary indulgence. It was a necessity, forged in a brutal arms race against prey that was anything but passive. To understand the life of Allosaurus, we must look at its greatest challenge. Not the colossal, long-necked sauropods, which an individual might harry, but only a pack could hope to bring down, but a heavily armed herbivore that was a far more common and dangerous quarry, the iconic Stegosaurus. Imagine the scene. An Allosaurus, driven by a hunger that has sharpened its senses, emerges from a grove of cycads. Its target is in sight, a lone Stegosaurus, nearly its own length and double its weight. From a distance, the herbivore's most famous feature dominates its profile, the double row of large, bony plates running along its spine. For decades, popular culture has depicted these as shields, a kind of medieval battle armor. But the fossil record tells a different story. When we examine these plates, we find their internal structure was highly vascularized, filled with channels for blood flow, and their surfaces were likely covered in keratin. They were too thin and fragile, sir, for effective defense against a multi-ton predator. Their true purpose was likely a combination of thermoregulation, acting as giant radiators to manage body heat. And, more importantly, species recognition and display. They were elaborate billboards, not ramparts. The real danger, the weapon that commanded the respect of any predator, was at the opposite end of the animal. The tail of a Stegosaurus terminated in a formidable weapon known as a thagomizer. 4 menacing bony spikes, each capable of growing up to 1 meter in length. This was no passive defense. The tail was immensely muscular and flexible at its base, capable of being whipped sideways with incredible speed and devastating force. This wasn't speculation, it's a certainty written in the bones of its attacker. In 1993, paleontologists at the Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry in Utah, a site containing the remains of at least 44 individual Allosaurus, found a remarkable piece of evidence. It was the tail vertebra of an Allosaurus with a large circular puncture wound healed into the bone. The wound's conical shape was a perfect match for the tail spike of a Stegosaurus. The healed bone proves this was not a post-mortem injury. This Allosaurus was struck, grievously wounded, and survived the encounter. It is a fossilized snapshot of a failed hunt, a direct record of this epic Jurassic Duel. The confrontation would have been a tense, strategic dance. The Allosaurus, being the more agile of the two, would circle its quarry, its binocular vision assessing angles and opportunities. Its goal was to get past the lethal arc of the tail and deliver its hatchet-bite to the vulnerable, unarmored flank or neck. The Stegosaurus, in turn, would not stand idle. It would pivot on its powerful limbs, keeping its weaponized tail pointed directly at the threat. It understood the geometry of its own defense. The attack would come with explosive speed. The Allosaurus might feint, lunging to one side to draw a swing from the tail, hoping to create a momentary opening on the other. A swing and a miss by the Stegosaurus would leave it briefly exposed. In that split second, the predator would commit. It would surge forward, jaws gaping, aiming to slam its maxilla down onto the broad side of the herbivore. If the strike was successful, the result was catastrophic. The serrated teeth would slice through meters of flesh, severing muscles and blood vessels. The Allosaurus would then retreat to a safe distance, its work done, waiting for shock and blood loss to drain the strength from its 4-ton victim. We find evidence of these successful hunts too, in the form of Stegosaurus bones bearing the unmistakable scrape marks of Allosaurus teeth. But if the predator miscalculated by even a fraction of a second, the consequences were dire. A well-timed pivot and swing from the Stegosaurus could change the outcome instantly. The thagomizer spikes, backed by the immense power of the tail, would impact with enough force to pierce hide and embed deep in muscle and bone, as the healed vertebra so clearly demonstrates. This was the ultimate high-stakes conflict of the Jurassic. It was a duel between a highly specialized slicing attack and a brutally effective piercing defense, a recurring drama that shaped the evolution of both hunter and hunted for millions of years. The story of this conflict is not confined to a single damaged being. The fossil record, particularly at sites like the Cleveland Lloyd Quarry, provides a much broader and more harrowing narrative. When we assemble the skeletons, we are not just reconstructing anatomy. We are performing a kind of prehistoric forensic analysis. The bones of Allosaurus are frequently riddled with pathologies, evidence of injury and disease. Perhaps no single specimen tells this story better than MOR 693, a remarkably complete subadult nicknamed Big Al. Its skeleton is a medical chart documenting a life of extreme hardship. Big Al survived numerous traumatic injuries. We have found healed fractures on its ribs, damage to its vertebrae, and perhaps most significantly, a severe pathology on its right foot. The middle toe suffered a debilitating injury that became massively infected, a condition known as osteomyelitis. This would have caused chronic pain and a pronounced limp, severely hampering its ability to hunt. While we can't definitively attribute all these injuries to a specific antagonist like Stegosaurus, they paint a vivid portrait of the risks inherent in its predatory lifestyle. Every high-speed chase, every confrontation with powerful prey was a gamble that could result in broken bones, crippling infections, ultimately, death by starvation. This evidence forces us to see Allosaurus not as an indomitable monster, but as a resilient survivor in a brutally competitive world. Its position at the top of the food chain was anything but secure. It was earned through daily acts of courage and desperation. The prevalence of injuries suggests that failure was common, and that life for this apex predator was a relentless cycle of hunt, injury, recovery, and hunt again. This was the harsh reality of the Jurassic, an ecosystem governed not by cinematic drama, but by the unforgiving laws of survival. Ultimately, the epic duel between Allosaurus and Stegosaurus represents one of paleontology's clearest examples of a co-evolutionary arms race. The immense predation pressure from theropods like Allosaurus was almost certainly the driving force behind the evolution of the thagomizer. In response, as this defense became more effective, natural selection would have favored Allosaurus individuals that were faster, smarter, and employed hunting strategies like the agile hit-and-run hatchet-bite that minimized their exposure to the lethal tail. For millions of years, these two animals shaped each other, one becoming a more refined killer, the other a more formidable fortress. Their legacy, etched in stone, is a timeless story of the intricate and violent relationship between predator and prey. The story etched in these ancient bones is one of brutal conflict, but it is also one of profound resilience. This primordial duel, frozen in time, serves as a powerful testament to the intricate and often violent dance of coevolution. It reminds us that every creature, from the hunter to the hunted, is a vital thread in the grand, interconnected tapestry of life that has unfolded across our planet's immense history.